Hi everyone, it's number one it's number one Marmaduke man. Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. So I'm gonna keep that in because it's just a fine example of how I am after midnight. So I read Spider-Gwen right before I took off. I stewed about it the whole flight, and then I read Guardians of the Galaxy and I dug it. And now I'm kind of winding down for the night back home finally. It's late, and I've got a few closing thoughts. I'm about to go into hardcore study mode. I was kind of unprofessional and I uploaded a ton of vids right before I left for Thanksgiving break before I realized I actually could have scheduled those and have them spaced out nicely. So we're gonna go into like a little break mode here while I study, and then I take the test, and then December is gonna be the start of Kawam. I mentioned Project Chrono Trigger in the previous vid without explaining what that was because I've talked about it on Twitter. Project Chrono Triggered is kind of my joke name for the major project I'm working on. That'll be an investigation of the history of feminist art, making connections to the state of the comics industry today and the video game industry today. Where my thesis is, if we understand the history of feminist art and postmodern art theory, we will understand so much more about this seemingly new leftist movement that actually has very old roots. And as I learned about that in school, it was like I started understanding things. It was like I was blind, but then I saw the inner workings of the mind of people who before that were just political opponents that I didn't really understand. So I'm really excited for that series. I've been doing the reading for it. The books are ready and lined up. I am gonna be I don't know, I'm gonna go into the hyperbolic time chamber like Goku, and I'm gonna come out Mr. Professional, number one Marmaduke fan, with my tie beautifully tied and my suit pressed. It's gonna be great. But Spider-Gwen, I thought about ripping this. And I've said in the past, I don't rip comic books. I don't like to rip comic books. I like to draw on comic books and give them away, even if they're bad, because I figure it can be a free comic book for someone. I understand. I love watching Zach and him ripping comic books and finding creative ways to rip them. That's part of the fun of the channel when I watch his vids. But I am really starting to identify with the reasoning for destroying comic books now, because what I realized in the flight is this isn't a comic book. This is worse than a Jack Chick tract. And if you don't know what that is, you haven't lived in the Midwest on any Halloween. If you grew up Protestant, you might even have been encouraged to hand out Jack Chick tracts at one point to evangelize before some of his weird conspiracy theories started showing up. And I think they're actually pretty substandard in their biblical presentation and the arguments he makes. So, man, okay, but Jack Chick comics are essentially little comic stories that tell a story about an evil atheist or witch or something, and then there's kind of a ham-fisted gospel presentation, and they accept Jesus, and anyway, so they become infamous. If you're into D&D, people love the Jack Chick comic going after Dungeons and Dragons. I think he called it Darkest Dungeons or something, and people have turned that into a live action movie. It's so funny and it's so ridiculous. He kind of has a bit of a stiff, weird style. He died a couple years ago, but the connection I made is that the Jack Chick comics are propaganda. They are to the extent they have a story. The story exists to set up his what I consider to be sub-biblical gospel presentation, but no, this is worse than a Jack Chick tract, because no Jack Chick tract ends with the atheist getting beaten up and left for dead in the street. At their worst, they end up with a goofy, gospel presentation, and they come to Jesus, and it's so cheesy, right? But if Jack Chick tracks ended with people getting beat up that Jack Chick didn't like, we would think it was even. You can laugh at Jack Chick tracks because they're kind of goofy, but even though it's easy to laugh at, SJWs and this kind of comic for how bad it is, it's more sinister because the moral of the story isn't oh, teehee, evil right-wing white dudes. Let's evangelize the gospel of Christ to them. Let's evangelize the good news of social justice to them. It's, wouldn't it be nice if we could punch all of them in the face? That is why I think I was going back and forth, and I was saying, well, there could be a reason why that might be justified, defending yourself in that situation, but that's a fig leaf. It's a fantasy for punching people you don't like, where you come up with a little fig leaf reason for why it'd be legally justified to defend yourself in that situation. But let's be honest, you could actually, the analogy I thought of isn't just like flip the genders, man to woman. Imagine a trans person in that situation where a trans person got rebuffed by someone who didn't want to date a trans person, and the trans person comes out and says, hey, what's the matter? Don't you want to date me? And then maybe the trans person, puts their hands on them, and then wham, wham. That would be sickening, all right? I'm a conservative religious person, so I have religious objections to the trans political movement, but I would be sickened if someone on the right wrote a comic that was a fantasy about hurting trans people. That would twist me in my gut, because it's inhuman. If I saw a weird true misogynist writing a story that was essentially a fantasy about beating up a woman, that twist in my gut. And that twist in my gut happened when I read this. But I don't think that SJWs are capable of seeing this. And even if you do use that kind of a illustration with them, if they think, well, gee, yeah, you have a point. Maybe I would be offended if this was a story where a woman got beat up, or I would be offended if this was a story where a gay person or a trans person or a ethnic or racial minority got beat up. Well, but they already have a system in place which says that there's a pyramid of privilege, and you can only punch up. You can't punch down. It's moral to punch up. It's immoral to punch down, right? So they have a philosophical construct in place that lets them take any cognitive dissonance they may have, explain it away, and stay within their system and their clique. So I have decided not to rip this, but I can't give this away as it is. I can't even just draw on it a couple of times. I've joked before about how to roast comics the number one Marmaduke fan way, and I drew a few MAGA hats on it. That is not enough for this. If I'm not going to rip it, since I was so tempted to rip it, this needs a special punishment. After the test, I am going to go to the art store to get the supplies I need to punish this comic properly, and then I will give it away with my necessary additions. And what I like about that is, who knows, I'm going to throw it in a donation bin and forget about it. Maybe one of you guys will get to collect a number one Marmaduke fan original, but this is another time. So this gave me hope, and I think it's not enough for me to just read one good comic or a few good comics. I need a few months to detox from SJW Marvel trash. I need to talk about some good comics from my old collection. I need to talk about some of my art books and the inspiration I've taken from some of that. I need what does that call it? Like his cringe detox, where he just has a sitting. I need more than a sitting. I need months of sittings of good comics to remind me why I love this medium again. But here I found a new art hero, Marcus To. For some reason, he's not the cover artist, but mwah, oh, this is so cool. Guys, go get this Guardians of the Galaxy 147. Marcus To makes it worth it. It's even kind of fun and bouncy and even a little funny in its style. I mean, it's not... I don't think it's trying to be funnier than it needs to be. There's just a few little tee-hee gags, and then generally just kick-ass, kick-butt adventuring, right? So Ant-Man and Gamora are being pursued by Ultron zombies, and Ant-Man gets this bright idea to embiggen himself. I hate the word embiggen. He enlarges himself to hold the door back. So even though he's kind of being a little unheroic in that he's run away from Earth, he's doing a heroic action here. Gamora looks sweet. He looks cool, muscular, awesome, filling up the room. Red is used to impact drama, but it's not overbearing because we get a rest here. And then he slumps forward and collapses, right? And, his rear end is holding the door shut. So that's a little bit of a silly visual gag. But Gamora doesn't come out and say, tee-hee, it's so silly. Look, everybody, his rear end's pressing the door shut. Yes, this works. it's not like a laugh out loud moment, but it's kind of like that's kind of fun, right? And then we get the sense of who Gamora is by how she talks about the other soldiers and praises them for their courage in coming back to rescue them, and that she thought they had abandoned them at first. The soldiers, the Nova Corpsmen, came back, and we get the feel from her through this dialogue that she's a tough, go-getter type of character who admires courage. So her personality is being communicated through subtext. Back at the base, Groot and Rocket are doing the rounds, and Rocket's kind of being a smart aleck and pretending to be a good cop, but really he's subtly collecting information so he can go, sell stuff to crooks later. It's humor that's beneath the radar. You have to pick it up, and if you know who Rocket is, it becomes funny without someone whamming you over the head with a frying pan that says, "Laugh, dang you, laugh, 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 clong, clong, clong." A while ago, Tom Preston. If you don't know who Tom Preston is, his real name is Andrew Dobson, and Tom Preston was his DeviantArt name. I watched Tom Preston rise and fall, and the reason I thought of Tom Preston is he once did some tweet about how Disney or Marvel should hire furry artists. Ugh. Tom Preston is like the antithesis of good artistic work habits. When I talk about good artistic work habits and imaginative force, Tom Preston exists on the 180-degree opposite from that sphere. But I think he was right about maybe that one tweet from a while ago I dimly remember, because furry artists will draw really creepy, cringy stuff, but some of them may not have like all the creepy stuff. They might just like animal characters, I guess. But a lot of them do seem to understand how to draw a beautiful animal character with human expression. Right? Like maybe they don't go to that creepy website or whatever, but maybe they really appreciate the art of Disney's Robin Hood, the one with the animal characters. You know what I'm saying? They've carefully studied that movie at the very least to get a vibe for how to draw beautiful animal characters. Well, yeah, I have seen Rocket drawn in kind of a creepy fashion in some books, or just a really wonky, ugly fashion. But Marcus To is such a great general artist. He can draw a raccoon. And when he draws the raccoon's face, he can kind of give it some human personality and expression. So it doesn't look like furry art. It just looks like great, awesome art everywhere. And, maybe this rocket ship that Gamora comes in on, maybe that's some kind of model or toy, but it fits with the rest of the world, and it's in perspective, and there's some sketchiness to it. And look at Gamora. Wow, kind of a thin thigh there, but that's a great figure drawing. And she's just got this little, kind of prim expression and gorgeous waving hair. Wow. She's kind of floating a little above the door, but, it doesn't, even though it's a quick, excuse me, man, I must have some travel sickness or something. But, man, even though it's just a quick drawing, it's a strong drawing. Yes. And on some of Ant-Man's drawings, there'll be these big, bold strokes that are a lot thicker than other things. In the backgrounds, there'll be tiny little, thin, kind of patchy strokes in the far distance that become thicker strokes towards the foreground. So the width of the brush is emphasizing distance. Wow. Color. Look at this as a two-page spread. Yellow, 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 yellow. Generally kind of greens and blues. Light greens, yeah, so not that much punchy color, but the yellow's a punchy color, the red's a punchy color, the blue's a punchy color, and the white always is an eye catcher. So, wow, this is exactly what I needed. Rocket checking out the guns and little posture things, walking, kind of a little strut, leaning back on his hips and his guts forward a little bit, kind of a little chubby raccoon. And then, zoom in on face in that sly expression. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, my. New art. Bro, let's learn this. Marcus To. Marcus To. Marcus To. Yes, this is exactly what I needed after Spider-Gwen. This is going to be the start of a long, long time of detoxing from the cringe. I think I'm just going to cancel some of my pull lists, and I'm going to replace them with... My comic store lets me request artists, so I think I'm just going to start requesting artists I like, so that even if I get cringy stories, I know I'm going to get this kind of stuff that I love. And I am so happy. I needed to find a new art bro. today after all that nonsense. Okay, so this isn't exactly like a How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way pose where they, push it all the way to maximum. But look at this, a big dynamic punch, and Nova's kind of leaning forward, and we're at a low worm's eye view. This is a dynamic angle for this, and it's popping forward and filling the page on this page, but then back to the white gutters so that we don't get too we don't become too overburdened by too much full page color art. Yes. Oh, this panel, I love this. Man, every little thing. Color, predominantly blue, purple, blue, green, but bright yellow is the opposite of purple. Bright red is always eye-catching. It's the opposite of blue. So important, important, important. Now look at these white stripes. This is curling around this way. This is a bit abstract. Who knows if it would make that kind of shape in real life. But look, both are coming from an original point, and Nova's twisting around a bit. They're making a spiral shape that is containing the eye here. All of these feathered energy blasts, well, they follow this rotational energy. These straight lines, boop, 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 pointing at what's important. This one points us into here, back into here. The space shape in the back curves you down here. The spaceship itself points you back here. Mwah, 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 mwah. Mwah. Oh, I love it. I'm going to physically, literally, kiss the comic book. Maybe you've got a little bit of a chin reveal there, but it's not enough for me to pantomime it. I have to kiss this. Yes. And then they go and find, some Nova Corps. How much of this did I read? Did I read the whole thing? Oh, man, I might have almost fallen asleep. No, I read the whole thing. I tried to shoot this while I was waiting for my Uber driver and didn't have time, and I was feeling kind of tired and sniffly. They wake up and they're kind of, what did I like about this? Okay, so this isn't like a tee-hee, ha-ha, laugh-out-loud joke, but they're maintaining the tone of lighthearted buddy adventure story. So they're keeping it in an even, amusing tone, right? Maybe stop guessing from now on, because Star-Lord guessed that the traps wouldn't work. So it's not like a lull moment, but it's maintaining this kind of fun, lighthearted adventure tone to it, where these are two bros, they're in it to win it together. It's a buddy action cop story with space cops. Yeah. And then another big dynamic moment with his body thrusting forward as he's hit from behind by a surprise attack. She is pregnant. When I first saw the drawing, when I kind of flipped through, I thought, what is that, like a weird distended stomach? She's pregnant. Star-Lord says, I'm not going to fight a pregnant lady. He's noble. He has honorable intentions in who he fights and how he fights. He's not some weird gender egalitarian who just wants to punch a woman for the sake of punching a woman. Or he'd be willing to punch a woman in self-defense in a life or death struggle, but he has limits to what he is willing to do. He recognizes that some people are vulnerable, and you don't beat the snot out of them instantly. I thought I read this whole thing. Did I not read this whole thing? Man, I feel bad. Maybe I just got so tired. Maybe I was just so tired and brain dead and still suffering from post-traumatic Spider-Gwen stress that I didn't read the last couple pages. But I'm still, dang it. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have read the last couple pages before doing this. But man, when they do like a big thing, it does it. I hope I didn't show everything. I don't think I did. Okay, I'm just gonna close it before I show everything. All right, but absolutely strong in every capacity. I touched on all the things I really wanted to touch on. This is now going in my Art Heroes collection, along with Sean Gordon Murphy, along with Evan Van Sciver, along with Mr. Miracle, and along with our boy POTUS Thumb. Congratulations, Marcus Toe. You kept the dream alive for me today on the way home from Thanksgiving. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Love you guys. This is going to be the start of a short break. Catch it, but very short. I'm going to catch you in December with some awesome vids. I'm aiming to knock your socks off. Oh, what was it? I don't even know my Kardashians. Yeah, Kim Kardashian break the internet showing off her butt. Well, that's old news for me. I've shown you off my art butt long ago. But now I'm going to show you off all the research. I've weaponized my Asperger's, and we are gonna have so much fun. If you thought SJW Marvel was cringy, just wait until we dive into feminist art history. And I can't wait to find some more comics like this. Let me know if I can find. Let me know what else in the comments what Marcus To has done. Please, guys, help me find some art gods, because I just need a break from the SJW crap for the next few months. Love you guys. Catch you later.